Phobos is one of the two moons of Mars. It is an oval object measuring 26 kilometers across. The unmanned vehicle of the European Space Agency Mars Express managed to get as close as possible to it in January of the 2011 year. During the mission, three-dimensional images of Phobos with a 15-meter resolution were obtained. Also, the Mars Express spacecraft probed the interior of this object with a radar. Based on the results, experts said that Phobos cannot be a natural satellite, an asteroid. But what is it then? Rectangular hatches, and even the layering of the skin, are perfectly visible in these photos. And the radar received an echo from geometrically ideal empty rooms, which occupy a third of the volume of Phobos. It is possible that they are still filled with gas. All this testifies in favor of the fact that Phobos is an ancient, dilapidated, war-battered alien ship. Separated by millions of kilometers of outer space, Mars and Earth still have a mysterious connection. The two planets are located in the life belt, at an optimal distance from the Sun, and have almost identical astronomical parameters. Mars, it is very similar to Earth in many ways, and this is very surprising. These are probably two such planets that are like twins, but differ in size. Mars is about 2 times smaller than Earth, but 1.5 to 2, so to speak, between these values. Here, the axis of the Earth is 23.5 degrees from the plane of the ecliptic. Mars has 25 degrees. The duration of the day on Earth is 24 hours. Mars has almost 25 hours, a little more. Mars and Earth, unlike other solid bodies of the solar system, have a magnetic field. It protects against cosmic radiation. The atmosphere of both planets consists of the same gases. But we have a lot more oxygen. The terrain is very similar. These two worlds have mountains and plains, rivers and seas. Water is the main conditions for biological life. There is also on Mars. But there it all froze. Therefore, there is a lot of water on Mars. Polar caps, northern and southern polar caps, they contain both water and carbon dioxide. So, if there is a riverbed, then there was free water. If there was free water, then the temperature was different. At the first glance at Mars, it is clear that this world is not just dead, but killed, and not very long ago. The orbit is strangely elongated. The red planet sometimes comes too close to the Sun, then it is carried away very far. The Martian day is less than it should be. The axis of rotation writes out wild pretzels in space. The surface is pitted with monstrous pits from blows. That there was a cosmic catastrophe on Mars, which deprived it of the atmosphere, and thereby destroyed all the ecosystems of Mars. It destroyed all living things, the atmosphere, the rivers dried up, and she became dead. The planet has become a dead desert. In general, Mars resembles a broken rusty Yule, where icy dust storms sometimes expose the stone ruins of cities. What we observe suggests that despite the global catastrophe experienced, Mars is still visited, and has a certain level of technogenic activity. That is, the planet has not completely perished. The Martian region of Cydonia is known as the center of mysterious artifacts. There are more than a dozen pyramids located here. The resolution of modern images leaves no doubt about the geometry of these objects. However, their size is amazing. The height of some is 500 meters, the length of the base is 2 kilometers. They are 5–10 times bigger than the Egyptian pyramids. For us, they are gigantic, but for the inhabitants of the Martian civilization, which may have perished, may still live somewhere. It was probably more developed. For them, it was a kind of norm. There is a certain pattern in terms of the Martian pyramids. They are located at perfectly right angles. Some of them are similar to terrestrial ones, but there are others of unprecedented designs. In addition to triangular pyramids, there is a formation of 5 hexagonal, more complex ones, and there are also some oval ones, such as cones. And it seems that the cones are like volcanoes, you can say, but some cones have the upper part cut off completely evenly. In some cones, we observe again holes like these that go down. Not far from the pyramid complex, there is another famous Martian sphinx, a face measuring 1.5 kilometers. There are only 3 pictures of this intriguing mountain, and researchers have already built a lot of theories on them. The first 2 were taken by the American Viking camera in 1976 year. Here's picture number 1. That's one shade, as the sun at the same angle it was. And then picture number 2. The sun was at a different angle, and in both pictures, the contours are repeated. The third photo session was held by Mars orbiter 30 years later. As can be seen in the higher resolution images, there is no human face there. There is only a bizarre play of light and shadow. The publication of these frames gave rise to another conspiracy theory. Allegedly, NASA retouched the images and again hides traces of aliens. But seekers of extraterrestrial artifacts can rest easy. Face or not, the central axis of the largest pentahedral pyramid points exactly to it. There is no point in making such a structure that looks at the ground for some reason. It was a civilization of such a high level of development that could foresee for some near future what would happen to them. They were more interested in what should happen to them and will happen, rather than an attempt to leave on the surface of Mars. A certain face looking at the Earth, which perhaps in the future will stimulate the imagination of Earthlings. The facade of this largest pentahedral pyramid of the monster has 3 faces at an angle of 60 degrees. The center is directed at the pseudo-face, the left edge at the ruins of the city, the right at the top of the dome structure. There are some structures, factories, villages, roads. The destroyed observatory, so I conditionally called it, with domes, Blue Observatory. A giant radio telescope, a huge mirror of gigantic dimensions. Geologists are still racking their brains about structures on the other side of the planet. In the Adalia region, corrugated pipes run through the gorge between the Martian rocks. They are huge. Their diameter is sometimes 300 meters. The length is up to 40 kilometers. The ends of the pipes go underground or into the rock. Pipes bend under the landscape, join, sometimes at right angles. These objects are called the land of tunnels or Martian glass worms. Yes, glass. These are giant corpses of wire. Either these are transport pipelines, or water is really pumped through them. We do not know. In other words, we just don't know anything at all about what's going on there. Really, what's going on Mars? Half of the devices sent there died. Moreover, the losses of the Russian and American sides are the same. A dozen missions are considered successfully completed. In other words, these stations miraculously lived the stated term. 21 vehicles stopped working on the way to the Red Planet. Most of them simply lost touch. A third exploded at the start, another part went off course. Why Phobos? The Russian first, which started on the 7th of 9,988th year, and the second, which started 5 days later, did not reach the goal. Yes, for the simple reason that they could have witnessed what people at that time, perhaps even now, should not have known.
Люди к тому моменту, возможно, и сейчас не должны были бы знать.
And therefore, these ships were removed from orbits or their orbits were rejected.
Их орбиты были отклонены.
The second focus, for example, recorded the presence of a giant cigar-shaped object near the satellite of Mars.
Спутника Марса.
The object was almost 20 kilometers long, clearly man-made. Today on the Martian orbit work research station of the American Mars Arbitrator and Mars Odyssey, European Mars Express. The Opportunity rover is roaming the surface. And yet only a super-intelligent machine is flying, the Curiosity or Curiosity apparatus. She's going to climb into the crater, dig the ground, and find traces of life. All those upcoming expeditions that we have organized, I am afraid, will continue to be unsuccessful precisely for the same reason. That we may witness activity, the knowledge of which is still too early for us.
Очевидцами активности, знание которой нам пока еще рановато.
The apparatuses made a detailed map of Mars. Its surface shows us the traces of a cosmic catastrophe. A monstrous scar, a sinuous furrow thousands of kilometers long. This is the Marina Valley. Its depth is 11 kilometers, and its width is about 200. A little more and the planet would crack in half. Judging by those traces, by the colossal canyons that remained like terrible cracks, seams, scars, 4,500 kilometers long, 11 kilometers deep, the blow was deadly force. The unique mystery of Mars. The entire northern hemisphere is 3 kilometers lower in altitude than the southern hemisphere, and the dividing line runs almost exactly along the equator. It feels like Mars has been scalped. On one side of his three biggest in the solar system of the crater, and Lada, Isis, and Argyre. These are the traces of three giant asteroids that surprisingly stuck together into the crust and pierced the mantle. Or maybe these are not the traces of meteorites at all, but of some kind of weapon that we do not know. Maybe, as races once fought, and these races destroyed each other, we were left alone. The impact spawned three huge volcanoes on the reverse side of Mars, which pass into the abyss of the Mariner Valley. It was enough to destroy any life forms on the planet. On Mars, it was a disaster, similar to if a billion hydrogen bombs were detonated simultaneously on Earth. Approximately. Powerful, and Mars noticed much less than Earth. Where did the killer stones come from? Astronomers are turning their eyes to the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. According to all calculations, there used to be a planet there, but now there are only fragments left. Ancient texts call it Phaeton, sometimes a theme. Science believes that one day Phaeton split into pieces, and Mars, as the nearest neighbor, took a lot of blows on itself. Several very large cosmic bodies have entered the solar system. These are literally giant planetoids. And these objects crash into Tiamat, what we call Phaeton today, which leads to the complete destruction of the planet. That is, it shatters into a huge number of pieces. That leaves the asteroid belt. As for Mars, its death is the result of a collision with a very large cosmic body. But at the same time, Mars still survived, and Phaeton, as we see, was completely destroyed. Alexei Samorukov suspects that in a previous life, he had a relationship with the ancient civilizations of Earth or Mars, and may have seen the death of Phaeton. Memories began to come to him after a lot of stress. That day, in a state of extraordinary happiness, he sat down at the table, and his hand seemed to draw a diagram of a certain apparatus by itself. I really had a joyful day. My first daughter was born. I was in a state of, let's say, inadequately understanding what I was doing. I drew this, and only in the morning, I saw this piece of paper with a pen on the kitchen table when I came to drink coffee. Alexei at first did not even understand what he had reproduced on paper. However, I decided not to throw the sheet away. Later, he saw a film about the brilliant scientist Nikola Tesla and his experiments with electromagnetism. In my head, a long time ago, people flew on ships using this principle of operation. Then I saw it in my dreams. I saw it as if, how to explain it to you? A dump is not a dump is not a dump, but it's not on Earth. It's somewhere far away in space, on another planet. I walked next to them. It was all overgrown, let's say, with moss of that time. I've seen these devices from the inside. Then I realized what I had drawn. A universal platform for creating anti-gravity. Alexei studied a lot of works on physics and realized that the device does not contradict any laws. The effect is created due to the rotation of two magnetic disks in a special way and an acoustic wave. It's an electromagnetic cushion that creates its own gravity. It will have an independent gravity from our planet, so it will be called anti-gravity. This is a device capable of lifting air to a certain required height of the object. This object will be moved by other devices. These are the same electric turbines powered by energy. Vehicles with these engines can perform fantastic maneuvers like UFOs. They don't need roads and resources from the bowels of the planet. They do not pollute the air and do not get into accidents. Alexei Samorukov is ready to give this invention to the world. But first, you need to make at least a prototype, and this is impossible at home. What I propose to do will be the same as this unidentified flying object here. He will also change the trajectory, since he will not need to have crazy aerodynamic abilities in order to make a U-turn and so on. He can simply become in the air at any moment. This technology, as they say, is all completely new, long forgotten old. We forgot about it. Not you, the people who live now, but those who knew about it millennia ago. Alexei is sure that sometimes in dreams he sees his reincarnations. Other worlds, unimaginable beauties, cosmic landscapes of different creatures. One dream repeats itself. He is the captain of an interstellar ship that hangs in the orbit of the planet. Alexei looks at the monitors and realizes that a terrible catastrophe is about to happen, but he can't do anything. The planet explodes, fire and fragments destroy his spaceship. Everything dies, and Alexei wakes up in horror in this life. Yes, I see it in my dreams. I see different planets. I see explosions of planets. I hear communication of the essence. Perhaps it's all the information in the old bygone years that I'm falling into. I see it. I pull something out of there. I wake up in a cold sweat from the explosions. It is officially believed that life on Mars died millions of years ago. But there is evidence that it could have been closer to our time. Mars is covered with hundreds, and maybe thousands of a huge number of meteorite craters of various sizes. But it is characteristic that these craters are fresh in appearance. They are not ancient, not buried, not destroyed, but fresh, well, geologically fresh. Found a lot of meteorites that have come to us from Mars during a cosmic catastrophe. The largest of them is a 16-kilogram Yamato stone. It was discovered in the 2001 year in Antarctica. All these fragments are of the same age, 13,000 years old. it is already a crust of melted oxides of secondary minerals, which suggest that it entered the Earth's atmosphere at that time. This is a fairly accurate date of the catastrophe in the solar system. Scientists cannot answer the question why the Phaeton had broken apart. Some talk about the passage of asteroid clouds by the solar system, while others talk about approaching wandering planets. And there is another version in the ancient texts. Somewhere around the turn of 15,000 years ago, approximately, the solar system found itself in a position of confrontation with some external force. All the texts, and Indian texts and so on, say that there was a kind of war between the Surus gods and the Asuras not gods. And this confrontation, it was in the solar system. And this confrontation ended tragically. The oldest written monuments that have survived to our time are the Chronicles of Sumer and Egypt. The Sumerians are the oldest civilization in the world. 8,000 years ago, this nation was already in the prime of its culture. The Sumerians came from nowhere and occupied the region from modern Turkey to Iraq. The language of the Sumerians has no analogues on Earth. They had a strange and complex sexagesimal number system, developed medicine and jurisprudence. Sumerian craftsmen were skilled in metal smelting and farming. All this, it is claimed, they were taught by the gods. The Sumerians believed that the gods created them to serve, and they could not do without each other. If we turn to ancient civilizations that did not know about UFOs yet, and in this respect they were absolutely objective, then in all the legends of antiquity among the Sumerians, the ancient Egyptians, the Babylonians, they all have gods coming from heaven and teaching people. The Sumerians were also excellent astronomers and clearly knew where their gods came from. The birthplace of the gods was the planet Nibiru. American researcher Zachariah Sitchin found a unique artifact in the Berlin Historical Museum, a Sumerian seal of the 3rd millennium BC. There is a diagram of the solar system where there are more planets than are known. In the Sumerian system of knowledge, there was also the planet Tiamat, which split into pieces. The described catastrophe is similar to what could have happened to the Phaeton. The planet Tiamat, according to Sumerian texts, which we today call Phaeton, from which the asteroid belt remained. The gods from Nibiru taught people to build pyramids in order to communicate with them and see the past and the future. Gold and uranium were mined on Earth. The gods added their DNA to the monkey's flesh, and so man arose. And then they married the daughters of men, and demigod kings were born. For example, King Gilgamesh is a real historical person. As it appears in the description, 2/3 of God is one person. If we take the Bible, then there is a direct text in the Bible that the gods are not gods, but God, so to speak, was one. But first, there were some people who, therefore, loved winter women and took them as wives. And so, maybe they improved the human race like that. Because we don't know why the 5-centrope was suddenly replaced by a Neanderthal. Egypt was located next to Sumer. The religions of these two countries are similar in many ways. The main pleiad of Egyptian gods coincides with the Sumerian ones. In all temples or royal palaces of both countries, there is such a ball with wings or with snakes. Everywhere he assigns the territory of the gods and their planet. In Sumerian, Nibiru. But in Egypt it was called differently. The Great Sphinx was painted red in ancient times. He personified a celestial deity or planet, which Egyptian astronomers called Horus the Red, aka Mars. Both the monument and the neighboring planet in the annals are called mountains on the horizon. In the secret rooms of Egyptian temples, there are records that the gods came from Mars with the red planet. And I, as a researcher, can with full confidence return to Mars its true name, the Ancient One. Not Biru. That's the name of Mars. So, the knowledge that came from Mars to Earth and was reflected on Earth, including in architectural structures. It is very correlated with what we see on Mars. On the other side of the Earth, there are also indications of the planet of the gods. The Teotihuacan Pyramid Complex is located in Mexico. As the legends say, it was built by the gods after the Great Flood. Modern researchers have paid attention to the proportions between the buildings. If we superimpose a map of the solar system on the scheme of this complex, then the distance between the pyramids exactly coincides with the distance between the planets. The planet Earth is on the site of the Pyramid of the Earth. It is also called the Pyramid of the Moon. The Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, whose name means both the feathered serpent and the heavenly sage, falls into the orbit of Mars. In addition, the ratio of the diameter of Mars to the diameter of our planet is 0.532 thousandths. Exactly the same is the proportion between the height of the pyramids of Quetzalcoatl and the Earth. This is too obvious a coincidence. The Teotihuacan, which clearly shows with its entire structure, we have the pyramids of Quetzalcoatl, which are in orbit on the corresponding orbit, which is projected onto the entire complex. There is the sun, there is the earth. And pay attention, it is from the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, that is, the pyramid of Mars, that the road goes where? To the ground. That is, they came to Earth from Mars. Vladimir Ovinsky has found a mathematical proof of the connection between the Martian civilization and the Earth. The scientist considers his discovery not accidental. Many years ago, he had an amazing experience in the Egyptian pyramid of Cheops. I was in the pyramid, looked into the sarcophagus, so, cabbage. After which, frankly, I almost lost my mind. There was some kind of micro-pulse puncture, or something I would call it. From somewhere on top of this pyramid, which is the concentrator of these terrestrial cosmic energies, some kind of ray or pulse passed. Well, it touched my consciousness a little bit. The Russian scientist fell into a kind of information beam that went through the top of the pyramid, at the head of an empty sarcophagus. This is how, according to descriptions, the pharaohs became gods. The pyramid expanded the boundaries of their consciousness and endowed them with superpowers. A piece of time revealed, well, to me, all the pictures of the past and the future are clearly. All the secrets, riddles, sounds, sensations, and so on. It was absolutely clear what kind of pyramid, who was there or was not there, and instantly disappeared. Only a gray film remained in my memory, like from a burnt letter. After this incident, Vladimir Ravensky began to study ancient structures. He drew attention to the strange pattern of the location of stones in the ancient observatory Stonehenge. Here, in terms of Stonehenge, I found such a strange figure, a special pentagram. So this pentagram differs in that it is built on an 11-sided one. This figure uses an angle equal to 1/11 of the arc of the circle. Ovinsky called it alpha corner. For the sake of interest, I began to look for it in other structures of ancient civilizations, and found it in each. The step pyramid of the Earth fits, as it is written here, in 6 alpha. And literally all spheres of knowledge obey this principle. Or in geometric terms, through the critical angle alpha multiplied by 2, 3, 5, 6. Or in metric terms, 11, 22, 44 is like a world constant. These numbers have always been sacred to secret societies. For example, in mystical Islam, 11 means one of the names of Allah. Ancient Egypt was always ruled by 11 priests and hierophants, keepers of knowledge. 22 panels were found in the tomb of Khizr, the chief architect of the pharaoh, on which the principles of world harmony were inscribed. 22 arcana of the tarot, 33 years of Christ, and the same number of degrees of initiation in the Masonic Brotherhood. When I dug further, all ancient Egyptian art. Right. Numerous other pyramids. And most importantly, the internal structure of the Pyramid of Cheops is completely controlled by alpha pentageometry, as I say. And then Vladimir Ovinsky attached his magic pentagon to the plan of the Martian pyramids. The alpha angle was used everywhere. Structures on Earth and on Mars are built according to a single engineering principle. We have, as it were, a universal manifestation of this kind of law of the universe in our civilization, and therefore, in other civilizations as well. We are still, as they say, a young creature in the universe, and we have already come to this understanding. And more mature civilizations, solar or galactic, have long known this principle. In the Egyptian temple of the goddess Hathor, in the town of Dendera, the walls and ceiling are occupied by sacred paintings. This is the Denderian zodiac, a chronicle of catastrophes in the solar system recorded by the priests. Each planet is designated with the help of a deity. A man-traveler in armor, with a royal staff, with the head of a falcon, is signed Red Mountain. So Mars. Symbolically, his fate is described here. Mars not so long ago, some 14,000 years ago, was alive, was inhabited by a very highly developed civilization, and was in a completely different orbit, which was much closer to the Sun, as well as the Earth, which follows from, for example, the catastrophic zodiac of the Egyptian temple of John Chad, which we know as the Denderian zodiac. Comparing images of the surface of Mars and ancient chronicles, you can get a complete picture of what happened. The Phaeton exploded. 3 of its giant fragments rushed towards Mars. Some bodies, which probably created the craters of Hellas, Urgira, and Sid, crashed and collided with the surface of Mars. As a result of this impact, the surface of Mars was engulfed by monstrous seeding, earthquakes. There were splits of the Earth's crust that covered almost the entire surface of Mars, and even rift valleys were formed, such as the huge Marina Valley. A terrible calamity did not pass the Earth. Fragments of the Phaeton scattered in all directions, and one of them, a giant asteroid, plunged into the ocean near the Azores with incredible speed. The planet has spewed millions of tons of incandescent lava and ash. A huge tsunami twice circled the globe. Whole continents have gone underwater. The Earth began to rotate chaotically and fall from its orbit. And I assume, and I have reason to believe, that one of the largest falls of a planetoid occurred 13,665 years ago in the area of the Azores.
665 лет назад в район Азорских островов.
And it was this fall that led to the death of the civilizations known to us, such as Atlantis, Hyperborea.
Атлантида,
But,
Гиперборея.
thank God, in one way or another we survived. And Mars and Phaeton were in much worse positions.
В худших позициях.
As described by the same Denderian zodiac, the gods stopped the Earth, put it in a different orbit, and gave the moon. This fact explains why all ancient calendars numbered 360 days, and modern 365 plus. The planet was 5 days of flight closer to the Sun, and this position was the best for her. This can characterize a single catastrophe: the death of Phaeton, the catastrophe on Mars, and the catastrophe on Earth, due to the fact that it is possible, as many believe, that a piece of this planet, which later became the Moon, flew to Earth and began to rotate around it. Ancient texts describe that the gods who lived on Earth at that time did not have time to do anything. They all began to flee, and the priests, their human servants, watched helplessly. The trees of the text mention that the gods who lived on Earth, they left the Earth hastily.
Они покинули Землю поспешно.
They literally snapped and left. Their departure was very short-lived, in many ways unexpected. So much so that, as they say again, that vile texts, some gods remained on Earth, they assimilated with the local population. And here is a completely different story. While the Earth did not survive as best they could, the inhabitants of Mars, as the legends say, escaped almost in full from their planet. Where could they have gone? Where did the Martians go? This is a very interesting question, because according to Vedic legends, 2 waves of space aliens arrived on Earth at different times.
Две волны космических пришельцев в разное время прилетели на Землю.
Astrophysicist Kirill Butusov made a lot of discoveries. According to his calculations, scientists around the world find celestial bodies in space. And soon the professor's main theory will be confirmed. He discovered a new planet in the solar system. Most likely, it is inhabited. For us, this is a civilization of the gods, which generally commands the entire solar system and controls everything that happens here. Academician Butusov did not specifically look for the 10th planet. Its existence was confirmed by the laws of the solar system, which he discovered. The orbits of Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are symmetrical with respect to the orbit of Jupiter. Soon, however, scientists realized that the orbits of Mercury, Venus, and Mars is also symmetric with respect to the Earth's orbit. So there must be another planet in Earth's orbit. It can hide in the so-called vibration point. One vibrational point is located near the Earth on the line connecting the Earth with the Sun, and the other is located behind the Sun, almost in the orbit of the Earth. Here is the second, so-called collinear or linear vibration point. These points are unstable. Therefore, if a body is placed there, at this point, it will walk with the same period as the Earth around the Sun. But we will not see each other, but the period will be the same. The Sun obscures from telescopes an area equal to 600 diameters of the Earth. That is, there may be many bodies hiding behind it. Therefore, this planet has not yet been officially discovered. To see it, you need to fly away from the Earth 15 times further than the Moon. Terrestrial apparatuses do not photograph everything around. Their cameras are aimed at strictly defined areas. And no one has ever set a task to look for objects behind the Sun. Phobos was the first to take pictures of the Sun. And he took pictures of the Sun after the launch, took exactly 140 pictures of the Sun. But when he got into a position after which, I mean with a picture, he would have fixed the planet behind the Sun. This 141st picture did not take place. Kirill Butusov named the planet behind the Sun Gloria. It turned out that people have known about it and its inhabitants for a long time. In various chronicles, it is called the anti-Earth, the Utopia of Rupetvin. This fresco is a fragment of a painting from the tomb of Pharaoh Ramses VI. The male figure in the center symbolizes the sun. There are two planets on either side of it. They are located in the third orbit. The second celestial body is apparently larger than the Earth. Since it is in the same conditions as the Earth, at the same distance from the sun, it means that there must be the same conditions as on Earth. Climatic, that is, the temperature should be maintained the same, and so on, and so on. If this body rotates, then there must also be a change of day and night, right? The Denderian zodiac shows how bodies of different weights balance on the same orbit. The female figure represents the Earth, the baboon in her hand the moon. In other words, a satellite was attracted to our planet in order to gain the mass that is missing for balance with the mysterious planet. If we follow clearly the instructions preserved in the ancient texts, so, from 14,000 years ago to 3113th year BC, there was a period of cosmic chaos, when some forces stabilized the solar system. On January 25, 1672, the director of the Paris Observatory, Giovanni Domenico Cassini, discovered an unknown planet in the sky near Venus. The astronomer decided that he had discovered a satellite of Venus. The next time he saw this body was in 1686th year. The English astronomer James Short observed it in 1740th year. Then the planet appeared from behind the sun in 1759. She was noticed by the German Andreas Mayer. We now know that Venus has no satellite. And, interestingly, if this is our body, our solar system, it is already illuminated by the sun, and we will see each other in the form of a sickle. And this body was sickle-shaped. That is, it means clearly some kind of body that is in the solar system, not a distant star. Here, well, they appreciated the size. This means that this body has been observed for about 100 years by different astronomers. They see it, they don't see it. Then this body appears, then it does not exist. Where it goes is unclear. The position of the planet behind the sun is unstable, it depends on the Earth. Any large explosion caused by humans can create a wave that will push the anti-Earth out of its orbit. Then the two heavenly bodies will go towards each other. Well, maybe the orbits don't coincide, they are slightly inclined relative to each other. All this will pass, but this body will still pass close and cause such terrible disturbances on Earth that civilization may perish. I thought that there is a higher civilization there than ours, and they will not allow this to happen. Since they come to us here, they control. Indeed, eyewitnesses observe flying saucers during natural disasters, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, typhoons, and tsunamis. Nuclear tests and ballistic missile launches are always controlled by UFOs. So the Earth is sitting at the vibrational point of Gloria, and Gloria is sitting at the vibrational point of the Earth. And then we will push out with the help of our explosions into the ground. Leave. And then we will meet. God forbid that happens. The writer Zechariah Sitchin independently translated many Sumerian texts. It turned out that the planet Nibiru is not in the solar system. It supposedly has unusual astronomical conditions. The planet's orbit is such that once every 3,600 years, it approaches our solar system and passes very close to Earth. With such an orbit, life on the mythical Nibiru is impossible. Optimal conditions on planets in the life belt, on Earth, Mars, and where Phaeton was. Returning to the Sumerian texts, about which Zachary Sitchin wrote in his books, and in particular, about his interpretation. The planet Nibiru, which with a period of 3,600 years enters the solar system, crosses it, and again goes beyond it.
за ее пределы.
Here there is one of the overlays, those very historical overlays, where we can see a certain trace, a certain fragment. Some information that a sufficiently large cosmic body crossed the solar system, went behind the sun, and apparently remained there.
Некую информацию о том, что достаточно крупное космическое тело пересекало Солнечную систему, ушло за Солнце, и, судя по всему, там и осталось.
It can be concluded that during the catastrophe of Mars and Phaeton, a huge wandering planet entered the solar system. For the gods, the inhabitants of the dying world, it could become a new home. But for this it was necessary to leave it in the life belt of our star. In the orbit of Phaetona, its fragments were rushing at breakneck speed. The orbit of Mars was no good either. The red planet was much smaller and lighter than the new one. And for equilibrium, bodies in the same orbit must have the same mass. The Earth remained. According to ancient texts, the gods changed the orbit of a wandering planet and placed it opposite to the Earth, behind the sun. But it was heavier than the Earth, and therefore our planet was given a satellite from the wreckage of the Phaeton, that is, the Moon. And it was to this ready-made planet that those who lived on Mars and Phaeton urgently retreated. I emphasize once again, this is in accordance with ancient texts. History in the universe moves in a spiral, and in each new turn of events are repeated. We believe in the apocalypse and are afraid of a planetary catastrophe, because a drop of Martian blood that flows in each of us carries the genetic memory of the collapse of a great civilization. That everything can die in a matter of moments. All ancient prophecies indicate the date of the catastrophe, 2012th year. Therefore, right now we need to learn something important about the world around us, and why there is a mysterious connection between us and Mars.